There comes a moment in every life when the strain of control becomes unbearable, when the grip we have on the world tightens until our very soul trembles. And yet, despite our grasp, the world refuses to bend. You have felt it in your bones, in the sleepless hours, in the weight pressing upon your chest. It is the moment you must decide whether to remain the captain of a sinking ship, or to hand the wheel to a power infinitely wiser, infinitely steadier, infinitely stronger than your own mind. Letting go is not weakness. It is the highest form of power. For when you let go, you are not surrendering to chaos. You are surrendering to divine order. You are giving up the illusion that your conscious mind must solve all things, and instead allowing infinite intelligence to take command. The law of life is the law of belief. Say it aloud, quietly to yourself. The law of life is the law of belief. When you believe not merely with your intellect, but with the depth of your subconscious, that all is in the hands of God, the machinery of the universe moves in your favor. You have been told that to succeed you must fight harder, think faster, and strain every muscle of your will until you collapse. But life is not conquered by brute force. It is mastered through alignment. The conscious mind is the captain, yes, but the crew, the subconscious, obeys every command without question. When you speak in fear, your crew navigates toward the rocks. When you speak in faith, they guide you into safe harbors. God works through this same law, not as some distant ruler tossing you scraps of mercy, but as the life principle already dwelling in you, eager to bring forth health, abundance, love, and wisdom. It is not your task to dictate every step of the journey. It is your task to issue the correct command, rooted in faith, and release it into the silent, tireless workings of the infinite. Consider the burden you carry when you try to direct every wave, to predict every storm, to control the winds themselves. You become weary, suspicious, and bound to the results of your own limited vision. But when you let go, when you place the situation into the hands of God with total expectancy of good, a strange and wonderful thing happens. The impossible begins to arrange itself in ways you could never have planned. The subconscious mind, like fertile soil, accepts the seed of your faith and grows it into a harvest in perfect season. It does not require your anxious digging to see if the roots have taken. It requires your patience, your gratitude, and your unwavering belief that the seed will grow because the law decrees it so. A woman once came to me, exhausted from years of battling a business partner in court. Every strategy failed. Every attempt to negotiate ended in bitterness. She was moments away from ruin. I told her, release it. See it in divine order. Stop rehearsing the injustice in your mind. Instead, affirm silently and with feeling, divine wisdom governs me. Divine love enfolds me. Divine power protects me. All is well. She resisted at first, thinking such a prayer was passive. But within weeks, her opponent unexpectedly settled in her favor. She could never have orchestrated the path by which this occurred. It came through channels beyond her sight, arranged by the wisdom that moves galaxies. You might say, but if I do not act, nothing will happen. And I tell you, there is a vast difference between action born of fear and action born of faith. When you let God handle it, you are not frozen in passivity. You are released from frantic, desperate motion. Your steps become precise, inspired, and efficient. The right people appear. The right ideas surface. The timing aligns. The law of subconscious manifestation is absolute. What you impress is expressed. Say this with me and write it down so it cannot escape your mind. What I impress upon my subconscious in faith, God expresses in my life. There is an arrogance in believing we must control all outcomes, for this assumes that the infinite has less imagination than we do. Think of the river that flows around the boulder, not straining against it, not cursing its presence, but gliding around it with ease, finding a better way forward. This is the way of divine order. The problem you face today is not greater than God's capacity to resolve it. It is only your attachment to the problem that makes it seem immovable. Release it now. Hand it over as you would hand a letter to a trusted messenger. Once it leaves your hand, you do not chase him down the road to ensure delivery. You trust it will arrive. Letting go is an act of faith that is felt in the body. It is the exhale after years of holding your breath. It is the unclenching of the fists, the loosening of the jaw, the stilling of the mind. In that stillness, the voice of God is heard. It may not speak in thunderclaps or visions, but in the quiet conviction that you are safe, provided for, and guided. You begin to notice small signs, a phone call at the right moment, an unexpected solution, a sudden shift in your own perception that dissolves the tension entirely. Do not mistake this for chance. This is the law responding to your belief. The subconscious mind, impressed with the idea that God is in control, works tirelessly to bring about the conditions that match that belief. The path may twist, but it leads unerringly to the outcome your faith has claimed. And here is the crucial point. You cannot claim faith and nurse doubt in the same breath. You cannot say God will handle it and then spend the day imagining disaster. Faith is a single-minded allegiance to the outcome you have entrusted to the infinite. There is a prayer I often recommend to those who struggle with the act of release. Speak it aloud each morning until it becomes the atmosphere of your mind. I am still and know that God is in control. Divine wisdom guides me. Divine love enfolds me. Divine abundance flows to me. I let go and let God handle it. Say it slowly. Feel each word descend into your subconscious like a seed sinking into rich soil. Write it on paper and place it where your eyes will meet it often. Let it govern the mood of your day. The truth is simple. You are not alone in the shaping of your destiny. The infinite is your silent partner, your unseen advocate, your tireless architect. When you align with this truth, when you let go of the compulsion to force, manipulate and obsess, you make space for miracles to enter. You open the door for solutions that are elegant, timely and perfect in ways you could not have predicted. Say it one last time with me now, and let it take root. I am one with wealth and wisdom, free of fear and doubt. When the mind finally loosens its grip, when it stops clawing at outcomes like a prisoner rattling the bars, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see the invisible hand at work. Situations that seem tangled beyond repair start to unravel without your interference. The adversary softens. The financial block gives way. The opportunity you thought was lost returns in a form more fitting than you first imagined. This is not magic in the childish sense. It is the precise operation of a law as dependable as gravity. The subconscious mind, infused with faith and expectation, aligns every resource, every contact, every possibility to fulfill the image impressed upon it. God moves through these channels because you have stepped aside and allowed him to. There is a subtle tyranny in the belief that we must personally wrestle every demon to the ground. That is the work of the ego, the small self convinced it must be the sole architect of salvation. But the higher self, the divine essence within, knows a deeper truth. That your role is not to fight the entire war, but to stand in the place of victory already won. Faith thinks from the end. It sees the mountain already moved, the body already healed, the debt already cleared, and lives in that reality before the evidence appears. The law of mental equivalence demands this. What you hold in mind with feeling becomes your world. Say it quietly now. I hold in my mind only that which I wish to see expressed, and so it is. A man I once knew faced ruin after his business collapsed. Creditors were at his door. His reputation was stained. Every fiber of his being wanted to plead, to scheme, to manipulate some last-minute rescue. But he chose another path. Each morning he sat in stillness, affirming, "Infinite intelligence opens my way. Divine abundance flows to me in perfect order. I give thanks for the restoration already complete." Within 2 months, he was offered a position in a firm that not only erased his debts, but placed him in a higher income bracket than before. He could not have plotted such an outcome. It unfolded through the precision of divine order once his subconscious was saturated with the idea of success already achieved. The letting go you are called to is not resignation. It is not the sigh of defeat. It is the deliberate handing over of your concern into hands that do not fail. Imagine placing the weight you have carried for years into a river that knows its destination better than you do. You do not chase it downstream. You do not dive after it to keep watch. You trust the current to deliver it to its rightful end. This trust is not born from naivety, but from repeated proof. Every time you have truly released a matter to God, the resolution has come, often swifter and cleaner than your own plans would allow. The conscious mind struggles with this because it craves evidence before commitment. But faith operates in the opposite sequence. It commits before evidence, and the evidence arrives as a natural consequence. This is why you must speak your word as if the answer is already in hand. Say it now, aloud if you can. I am guided, guarded, and prospered in all my ways. My life unfolds in divine sequence. Feel it as true. See it as done. The subconscious will take this command and labor for it in silence, arranging circumstances beyond your sight. When the storms rise, the temptation is to seize the wheel again, to revert to frantic control. But that is the very moment to deepen your release. The subconscious mind, once impressed with a new belief, continues to act upon it day and night, unless you countermand it with fear and doubt. This is why discipline of thought is essential. You do not rehearse worst-case scenarios. You do not speak of failure as if it were inevitable. You guard your mental imagery as a watchman guards a gate. You allow only the pictures you desire to see bloom in your life. In this way, letting go is not a single act but a continual state. You release in the morning, and again when fear tries to creep in at noon, and again when shadows lengthen in the evening. Each time you do, you reaffirm your covenant with the infinite, that you will act in harmony with divine order, and the infinite will see to the results. The mind begins to rest in this rhythm. Anxiety loosens its hold. You begin to walk through your days with an unshakable composure that others notice, even if they cannot name its source. This composure is power. It is the quiet strength of one who knows that nothing essential can be taken from them, and that all true good comes from within. You stop looking to people as your supply, and see them instead as channels through which God's supply may flow. If one channel closes, another opens, for the source is endless. The fear of loss dissolves because you understand there is no loss in God. There is only movement toward greater expression, greater abundance, greater harmony. Each time you let go, you practice the art of non-resistance. You cease pushing against life, and instead flow with its higher current. Obstacles become stepping stones. Delays reveal themselves as preparation. What seemed like detours lead you exactly where you were meant to go. And the more you live this way, the more natural it becomes to trust without grasping, to act without clinging, to speak your word and then release it into the boundless wisdom of God. Let this truth be carved into the foundation of your mind. I let go of control and trust the infinite to bring forth my highest good. Write it on your paper. Speak it before you sleep. Let it echo in your thoughts until it becomes the very air you breathe. For when this belief takes root, you will see that life has always been conspiring in your favor. You were only too busy wrestling with it to notice. Now, freed from the fight, you can finally receive. The world will tell you that to be secure, you must have your hands in every detail, your eyes on every possible threat, your mind alert to every angle of advantage. But what the world calls security is often nothing more than chronic tension disguised as vigilance. Real security comes when you know, deep in the marrow of your being, that your life is held in a wisdom greater than your own, a wisdom that cannot be deceived, diverted, or defeated. This knowing is not mere optimism. It is the understanding of spiritual law. Every cause begins in thought, and every effect is but the reflection of that thought impressed upon the subconscious. You cannot plant the seed of peace and reap a harvest of chaos. You cannot plant fear and expect to gather courage. The subconscious will always give back in kind what you have given it with feeling. And so when you let God handle it, you are choosing to plant the seeds of trust, surrender, and divine expectation, knowing with absolute certainty that the harvest will match the seed. To live this way requires a certain boldness, not the boldness of aggression, but the boldness of release. It is the courage to say, I will not bind my life to the limits of my own calculations. For the moment you insist on controlling the manner and timing of your blessings, you have placed a fence around what the infinite can do for you. You have told the river of life how to flow, and in doing so you have diminished its power. The truly bold soul removes the fence and says, flow where you will, and I will follow. In that surrender there is a strength the fearful mind cannot imagine, for it is the strength of one who knows they cannot be left behind by their own good. I recall a young woman who longed for marriage. Yet each relationship ended in disappointment. She tried every strategy, every appearance, every attempt to please and adapt, but nothing held. Finally, she decided to release the entire matter to God. She wrote a single affirmation on paper and read it every morning and night. Divine love unites me with my perfect companion. I am led in peace, joy, and harmony. She stopped chasing and began living her life in the fullness of her own joy. Within months she met the man who would become her husband, in a way so natural and unforced that she could only marvel at how easily the pieces fit. The letting go had cleared the way for divine order to work without her interference. Understand this. Letting go is not a withdrawal from life. It is an engagement with it on a higher level. You act, yes, but you act from inspiration, not compulsion. You move, but without the whip of anxiety at your back. Your mind becomes a receptive field for guidance, because you are no longer cluttering it with frantic instructions. The conscious mind is the watchman at the gate. It must be vigilant not against others, but against its own habit of fear. When you notice yourself tightening, rehearsing worst-case scenarios, or mentally chasing outcomes, pause, breathe, remind yourself, God is handling this in ways I cannot yet see. And you will find over time that solutions begin to arrive through paths so unlikely that you cannot help but laugh at your former attempts to orchestrate everything. The call you didn't expect, the letter that arrives after months of silence, the inner nudge to take a turn you normally wouldn't, leading you to exactly where you need to be. The subconscious, once impressed with the belief that God is in control, becomes a tireless engineer, building the bridge between your current circumstance and your desired outcome. Your role is to maintain the belief and refuse to sabotage it with doubt. This is why spoken word and written affirmation are such powerful tools. They are the means by which you impress new instructions upon the subconscious. But they must be spoken with feeling. The words alone are not enough. They must be the words. Cannot distinguish the life present begins to express these truths in the fabric of your life. Walk in divine timing. I trust divine wisdom. I release all concern, knowing that my good is certain. Write it down and do not let it slip from your mind. The mind that learns to release becomes unshakable in the face of appearances. While others panic, it remains poised. While others are swept away by the tides of circumstance, it stands firm on the rock of knowing. This is not because the person is stronger in willpower than others, but because they have shifted the burden from the frail shoulders of the ego to the limitless strength of the infinite. And in this strength there is no strain, for the work is already accomplished, and the unseen before it manifests in the seen. Consider the story of the great tenor Caruso, who was once seized with stage fright before a performance. His throat constricted, his voice faltered. But instead of surrendering to fear, he spoke inwardly to himself, "Little me, get out. Big me, come in." The big me was his faith in the infinite within him, the boundless self that could not be intimidated. In moments his voice returned in full power. This is the essence of letting go and letting God. It is stepping aside so that the greater life within can take the stage. When you live this way, you begin to measure your progress not by how much you can force, but by how much you can trust. The old reflex to grasp, to cling, to dictate begins to fade. In its place grows a calm, enduring confidence that no matter what rises against you, the outcome is already secured in divine mind. And from this confidence flows a peace so steady that it becomes your most valuable possession, a peace the world cannot give and cannot take away. So write this truth in bold letters, and let it guard the entrance to your thoughts. I am still, and I know that God is in control. All that concerns me is in divine hands, and my life moves in perfect order. Say it until it becomes the rhythm of your breathing, until it undergirds every step you take. For in this knowing you will find not only relief from the burden of control, but the joy of watching miracles unfold without strain, as naturally as dawn follows night. To let go and let God is to honor the natural order of manifestation. Every idea is like a seed, and the subconscious is the fertile soil that receives it. Once planted, it must be left undisturbed to take root and grow. The gardener who digs up the seed every morning to check its progress destroys the very life he is hoping to nurture. And so it is with your desires. Once you have impressed the image of the desired outcome upon your subconscious in faith, you must leave it to the unseen processes of the infinite. You water it with gratitude. You protect it from the weeds of doubt. You let the seasons of life move it toward fulfillment in their own perfect rhythm. When you begin to live in the awareness that God handles all things perfectly, a profound shift takes place inside you. The noise of constant mental chatter begins to fade. The habit of scanning for danger loosens its grip. You start to notice that life itself seems to breathe with you, moving in harmony with your inner calm. This is not the illusion of control, it is the reality of alignment. You are no longer working against the current of the infinite, but with it, and in that partnership there is a deep and unshakable ease. The subconscious mind, impressed with the certainty that all is unfolding in divine order, orchestrates events with precision you could never achieve through effort alone. This is the place of rest the scriptures speak of, the rest that comes when you trust the one who never sleeps, never falters, and never abandons his creation. I once counseled a man burdened with a lawsuit he was certain would destroy him. Every conversation, every waking thought was consumed with it. I told him, "You have already tried fear. You have already tried control. Now try trust." He began each day with a new declaration. Divine law and order govern this matter. I see only the perfect outcome. I release it now to the wisdom of God. Within a short time, the case was resolved in his favor, without the drawn-out battle he had dreaded. He told me later, "The strange thing is, I didn't feel like I had to fight. I felt like the fight had been taken from my hands and placed into better ones. The conscious mind may protest. It will tell you that you are being reckless by not worrying, that vigilance is the only protection against misfortune. But the truth is, worry is the greatest thief of energy, creativity, and clarity. Worry chokes the channel through which divine intelligence would send your answer. Faith, on the other hand, opens that channel wide. It creates a clear pathway for ideas, people, and circumstances to move toward you. This is not a matter of doing nothing. It is a matter of doing the right thing at the right time, because you are attuned to the guidance that flows from within. Letting go is not just a matter of resolving problems. It is a way of living in which problems lose their power over you entirely. You stop measuring your peace by the absence of conflict and begin to measure it by the steadiness of your faith in the midst of conflict. You realize that circumstances have no authority over the consciousness that knows its union with God. The law of belief stands here as your great ally. What you believe with feeling becomes the law of your life. This is why your most urgent work is the cultivation of belief, not in human strength, not in the flickering promises of the world, but in the unfailing activity of the infinite. One of the surest signs that you have truly let go is the disappearance of urgency. You stop pacing. You stop checking the clock. You move with deliberate, unhurried steps, trusting that you are exactly where you need to be at every moment. This is the opposite of the restless striving that characterizes most lives, and it is magnetic. People are drawn to the one who moves without hurry yet accomplishes much, for they sense the presence of a deeper power at work. That power is not personality. It is the flow of God through a mind that is no longer resisting him. This way of being transforms even the smallest details of life. The delays that once irritated you become opportunities for reflection or gratitude. The unexpected changes you once feared become open doors you would never have noticed otherwise. You begin to see that there is no wasted motion in the economy of the infinite, that everything is being woven into the tapestry of your highest good. And in this seeing, you become immune to the contagion of fear that grips the world, for your trust is rooted in something that cannot be shaken. If you would live in this same power, begin today to hand over every matter, great or small, to the infinite before you touch it with your conscious mind. Speak it aloud. I place this in the hands of divine wisdom. I release it and give thanks for its perfect resolution. Write it on your paper until it becomes instinctive, until you no longer have to remind yourself to do it, because it has become the only way you know how to live. And watch as life responds, not with resistance, but with a grace that meets you in every step you take. From this vantage point, you can act with precision instead of desperation. You speak when moved to speak, and your words carry weight because they are not born of panic. You move when moved to move, and your actions have impact because they are aligned with the divine sequence of events. This is the power that Jesus demonstrated when he said, I do nothing of myself, but as my Father hath taught me, I speak these things. His was a life lived in perfect release to the will of the infinite, and thus every act bore fruit. So let it be known within you now. You are not the sole architect of your destiny. You are the willing channel through which the infinite shapes it. You are not the storm-tossed vessel, but the sail catching the wind of the Spirit. And as long as you keep your sail open and your course aligned, the wind will carry you exactly where you are meant to go, without strain, without fear, without the exhausting burden of control. Speak it once more with conviction. I rest in the certainty of divine order. All is well, and all will unfold in perfect time. I recall a businessman on the brink of losing everything he had worked for. Every day he arrived at his office, heavy with dread, convinced that collapse was inevitable. When he came to me, I told him to set aside 1 hour each morning for a single practice, to sit quietly, close his eyes, and visualize his business thriving, his accounts full, his staff confident and happy. I told him to imagine signing contracts with ease, to hear in his mind the sound of congratulatory handshakes. Most importantly, I told him to end each session with the words, "This business is under divine management. God is my unfailing partner in success." Within weeks, opportunities emerged from quarters he had written off as hopeless, and within months, he had not only stabilized his company, but expanded it. His release of fear made room for the infinite to operate. There is a deep dignity in the soul that knows how to release its grasp without losing its resolve. This dignity is not laziness, nor is it fatalism. It is the quiet majesty of one who has learned that true mastery is not in controlling the tide, but in aligning with it. When you let God handle it, you stand in the confidence that the infinite is already moving every detail into its rightful place. You no longer thrash in the waters of uncertainty. You float upon them, upheld by the current of divine intelligence. In this state, the subconscious mind becomes a flawless instrument, translating your faith into precise action and perfect timing. You are no longer at war with life. You have entered into a treaty with it, sealed by your trust in the unseen. This trust produces a remarkable clarity. You begin to see which actions are yours to take and which are not. The fog of overthinking dissolves, and the voice of guidance grows unmistakable. Sometimes it whispers to act boldly, other times it urges you to wait. Either way, you obey without the friction of doubt. This is because your loyalty has shifted from the restless dictates of fear to the steady counsel of the infinite within. The law of mental impressions works ceaselessly in your favor here. Whatever image you hold with conviction becomes the blueprint your subconscious builds into reality. This is why I urge you to fill your mind only with images of the outcome you desire, never with the shadows of what you fear. When you live this way, your relationship with time changes. You stop treating delay as denial. You stop measuring God's timing by the pace of your impatience. You understand that the infinite moves according to the laws of right sequence, not according to the frantic schedules of men. And so, when an answer does not come instantly, you do not snatch back your request in frustration. You allow it to mature in the unseen until the moment it can emerge without flaw. This patience is not idle waiting. It is active trust. It is the steady expectation that what you have claimed in faith is on its way, and nothing can prevent its arrival. The discipline of letting go is built in small acts as much as great ones. You release the worry over a late payment. With the same faith, you release a life-altering decision. You turn over the uncertainty of tomorrow's meeting with the same surrender you apply to a long-awaited healing. This constancy trains the mind to respond with faith by default, so that when larger challenges arise, you are already conditioned to release rather than to resist. In this way, trust becomes not a reaction to crisis, but the atmosphere in which you live. You must understand, fear is a form of faith, but it is faith in the wrong direction. It is belief in the power of evil rather than the power of God. Every time you indulge it, you impress upon the subconscious the very conditions you wish to avoid. The subconscious, impartial and obedient, does not question the content. It simply expresses what is given. This is why your release must be accompanied by deliberate affirmative belief. Say this now: I give my subconscious only the seeds of life, health, abundance, and peace, and I reap accordingly. Write it down. Let it be your vow. Those around you will notice this change. They may say you seem lighter, calmer, more certain. They may ask if some stroke of fortune has come your way, and you will smile, knowing that the fortune they sense is not something that happened to you, but something that is flowing through you. You have shifted from the cramped quarters of self-reliance into the vast expanse of divine partnership. And once you have tasted this way of living, you will never return to the grinding, joyless struggle of controlling every outcome. Let it be fixed in your consciousness now. I am guided in all things. I am never without direction, never without supply, never without the presence of God. My path is lit. My steps are ordered. My good is certain. Speak it with conviction. Write it until the pen feels like an extension of your will. Let it sink into the depths of your subconscious, where it will take root and grow into a life that reflects the peace and power you are meant to know. And in that atmosphere, you find that even your language changes. You speak less of problems and more of solutions. You stop saying, I don't know what to do, and instead say, the right answer is being revealed to me now. You stop declaring what is wrong and start affirming what is unfolding. Every word you speak becomes a seed in the garden of your subconscious, and you choose them carefully, knowing they will grow. This is not denial. It is the deliberate shaping of your inner landscape so that the outer world may reflect it. The more you practice releasing your concerns to the infinite, the more you realize how much of life you once carried unnecessarily. You begin to look back on seasons of exhaustion and wonder how you ever thought it was your duty to keep the entire universe in place by the force of your will. This is the awakening, when you see clearly that control was never the source of your safety, and that surrender was never the source of your loss. In truth, every victory you have ever known came because you aligned, not because you forced. And every defeat came when you insisted on wrestling the tide, instead of letting it carry you. The law of life is the law of belief. What you choose to believe in your deepest self will be what life delivers to you. And when that belief is in the unfailing goodness of God, the results are as sure as the dawn. Release is not only an act, it is a state of being. It is the posture of a soul that has learned the rhythm of the infinite and chooses to move with it. You do not need to know every step ahead. You only need to take the one before you, confident that the next will reveal itself in perfect sequence. This is why the scriptures say, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path." A lamp does not illuminate the entire road at once. It gives you just enough light to take the next step without fear. This is how the infinite works. And when you accept this, you stop straining to see the horizon and start rejoicing in the clarity of each moment. I once worked with a man who had been paralyzed by indecision for years. He was waiting for perfect certainty before making a career move, terrified of making the wrong choice. We worked together to replace his fear with a simple daily affirmation: I am led by divine intelligence. The right opportunities revealed themselves at the right time. Within weeks, a job offer appeared that fit his skills and passions exactly, one he had not even applied for. The path was revealed because he had stopped standing still in the fog of doubt and had begun walking in the light of faith. When you let God handle it, you open the door to outcomes far greater than your limited foresight could construct. This is because the infinite sees all connections, all chains of cause and effect, all the subtle movements of people and events that are invisible to you. It arranges them in a pattern so precise that even your detours are woven into the design. Nothing is wasted. No moment is lost. Even what you thought was a failure becomes a step toward a larger fulfillment when it is placed in the hands of God. This is the beauty of divine order. It redeems everything it touches. To live in this trust, you must train yourself to act from conviction, not from desperation. Desperation is noisy. It drowns out guidance. Conviction is calm. It hears the still small voice and obeys it. And that voice will always lead you to your highest good, though it may not match the path you imagine. You must be willing to follow even when it diverges from your plan, knowing that the plan of the infinite is never less than perfect. This is why the law of non-resistance is so vital. What you resist persists, but what you accept and place in God's hands transforms. Every time you release something, whether it is a debt, a relationship, a fear, or a dream, you are exercising a spiritual muscle. That muscle grows stronger with each act of trust until it becomes second nature. You no longer need to force yourself to surrender. It becomes the way you breathe. And in that breathing there is power, because the subconscious mind, unburdened by conflicting commands, can carry out the single clear instruction you have given it to bring forth only what aligns with your highest good. Say it with me now. I breathe in peace. I breathe out control. God governs my every step. And as this becomes your way of life, you will find that even your relationship with uncertainty changes. You stop fearing the unknown and start seeing it as the canvas upon which the infinite paints. What once felt like emptiness now feels like possibility. What once seemed like loss now appears as clearing space for something greater. You live with open hands instead of clenched fists, and in those open hands blessings are placed freely without the strain of grasping. This is the paradox that the world cannot grasp. That the more you let go, the more secure you become. For your security no longer depends on the shifting sands of circumstance. It rests on the rock of an unchanging presence. The storms may howl, but you are anchored. The winds may shift, but you adjust your sail and move forward. There is no panic in you, because you know the one guiding you cannot be shaken. And this knowing radiates from you, calming others even when you speak no word. So let it be established in your heart right now. I live in the flow of divine order. I do not cling, I do not chase, I do not fear. All that is mine comes to me in perfect sequence, and nothing can keep it from me. Write it as a vow. Speak it until the very cells of your body carry its vibration. And as you do, watch how life rearranges itself to meet this declaration. How paths clear, how burdens lift, how answers come without struggle. For this is the reward of letting go and letting God, the peace of knowing that you are always, unfailingly, exactly where you need to be. There comes a point when the practice of letting go is no longer something you do only in moments of crisis. It becomes the very foundation of your life. You wake each morning without the tightness of dread in your chest. You walk into the day without rehearsing 100 possible disasters. You begin to live as one who trusts the architecture of the unseen. And because you trust it, you are free. Free to think clearly, to act decisively, to create without the weight of fear pressing on your mind. This freedom is not an accident. It is the direct result of living in harmony with the law of life, the law of belief, the law that says whatever is impressed upon your subconscious with feeling will be expressed in your experience. And when that impression is faith in God's perfect order, your experience will match it unfailingly. You will notice that your relationships change under this way of living. The compulsion to control others evaporates. because you no longer believe your safety or fulfillment depends on their actions. You give up the exhausting attempt to manage their thoughts, their choices, their approval. Instead, you bless them in the light of divine love, trusting that they too are guided and sustained by the same infinite presence that governs your own path. This releases both of you from invisible chains and allows genuine connection to flourish, free of manipulation or fear. This is one of the great hidden gifts of letting God handle it. You not only free yourself, you free others. Your work also transforms. No longer is it driven by panic, the clutching at opportunities, the fear of missing your moment. You work with precision, guided by inspiration instead of compulsion. You find that ideas arrive at the right time, that solutions appear just when they are needed, that your efforts seem to multiply without the strain that once left you drained. This is because your subconscious is no longer receiving conflicting orders. It is no longer being told to succeed while being fed visions of failure. It receives a single, unwavering command to manifest the success, harmony, and abundance you have claimed in faith. And it obeys that command with perfect loyalty. Even your health begins to mirror this inner release. The tension that once lived in your muscles, your breath, your very heartbeat begins to dissolve. The body, relieved of the constant flood of fear signals, returns to its natural state of balance. You sleep more deeply, rise more refreshed, and move through your day with a vitality that surprises you. This is no mystery. It is the natural result of allowing divine intelligence to govern your life without interference. The same life principle that turns the seed into a tree and the embryo into a child flows through you, healing, renewing, and restoring all that is needed. The peace you find here is not fragile. It is not dependent on the world, behaving as you wish. It is the peace that passes all understanding, the peace that comes from knowing your life is upheld by a presence that cannot fail. Even in moments when the outer picture appears chaotic, you remain anchored in the inner certainty that all is moving toward good. You have proven this to yourself over and over. Every time you have truly let go, the outcome has arrived in ways more perfect than you could have planned. And so your trust deepens, until it is no longer something you must remind yourself to feel. It is the air you breathe. In this state, the old temptations lose their hold. The urge to interfere, to manipulate, to force an answer fades away. You begin to see how often such interference only delays the good that was already on its way. You realize that you do not need to push open doors that the infinite has already unlocked. You need only to walk through them when the moment comes. And because you are no longer wasting energy on forcing what is not yet ready, you have more energy to embrace what is here now. Life becomes a series of perfect moments, each one arriving exactly on time. This is the art of living in divine order, to release every day into the hands of the infinite before it begins, to speak your word in faith, and then go about your work without clinging to the outcome. You know that the law is always at work, that the seed you plant in the morning will grow, whether you watch it or not. And so you choose to plant only what you wish to harvest. You choose thoughts of abundance over thoughts of lack, thoughts of health over thoughts of sickness, thoughts of love over thoughts of fear. The harvest is inevitable, because the law cannot be broken. Now let us seal this entire truth in a single declaration. Speak it as if your whole life depends on it, because it does. I am still, and I know that God is in control. I release all fear, all doubt, all need to control. My life unfolds in perfect order. My good arrives without strain, and I am open to receive it now. Write it in your own hand. Place it where your eyes will find it often. Let it become the rhythm of your heart and the atmosphere of your mind. For when it is, you will see that there is no force in heaven or earth that can keep you from the life you were meant to live. And so you step forward now into that life, not as one who must fight for every inch, but as one who knows they walk in a current that always carries them toward their highest good. You let go, you trust, you receive, and in doing so you discover the freedom, the peace, and the power that were yours all along. This is the way, this is the law, this is the life of the one who lets God handle it.